are blowing bubbles, pretty bubbles in the air.
Hey, it's Beth here, episode 660. Not last night, but the night before, Kit and I went out on the town. We tried to eat dinner. Sunday night, every restaurant is closed. We ended up at this little pizza place, but it was going to be big. We were looking at French restaurants. We were going to shoot it out, up in the sky. Brilliant fireworks, everything. Couldn't find a place to go. Who cares? That doesn't matter. We were going to see John Cleese. A big date downtown. I cannot believe how Austin has grown. We were at Jones Hall. I don't think that's what it's called. Some big hall. Right on the water. City on the other side. Unfortunately, H-E-B, this grocery store in town, put this hideous carbuncle on my view, which is this tiny, stupid stage with the big H-E-B sign. And I'm so learning disabled that that's all I could see. I just wanted it to go away. Just leave the view. Leave everything pretty. So, anyway, but it was an amazing skyline. I don't even know where I am anymore. So I go inside, and John Cleese is there. I'm so excited. He talks for 5 minutes, and then I have to watch the entire Monty Python movie. The one about, not Life of Brian, which I love, the other one. Anyway, it's the one where they play gladiators and everything. Not gladiators. Monty Python's, whatever it's called. You know the movie? The other one. Not Life of Brian, the other one. Okay, so had to watch that whole movie. I'd never seen it before. It's pretty good, and then it gets weird. And so afterwards he started talking, and he said, yeah, he likes the first part. And then the second part, the director wanted to impress Hollywood. So he started putting in, artistic direction, scenes of walking through marvelous forests. There's the scene where there's an army that comes out of nowhere. So it really was like a mishmash. But he comes back out and he starts to talk. And he's so funny. And he's 86. He was 6'5". I didn't know that. 86 years old. Hilarious. Hilarious. He tells nice little stories about how they made the first one, the Holy Grail. Looking for the Holy Grail, that's what it was. And then they came up with Life of Brian. Nobody would touch it. No one. So it was all gone, and he was just going to take some dumb job. And then he gets a phone call from Eric Idle, who says, we got the money. He's like, no, what are you saying? We got the money. What? Who gave you the money? George Harrison. He's my friend. He read the script. Last night, fell out of his bed, laughing. Today, he's mortgaging his home to give us the $3 million. I love that story. So that's how everything began. Just friends and friends and friends. So I thought, and then he tells the story. So somebody says to him, what's the craziest thing that ever really happened to you in your life? And he thinks, and he goes, well, one night I was in this hotel, like a fabulous hotel, Ritz-Carlton. My manager said, do you want to have dinner? He said, no, I just want to go to the room. It's beautiful. I want to have beautiful room service, and I want to go to bed. I'm exhausted. So he does that. And then at 2 o'clock in the morning, bang, 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 on his door. Couldn't believe it. Didn't happen. Bang, bang, bang. Oh my God, it's not a dream. Goes and answers the door, and there are 4 policemen, 3 people that worked in the hotel. And the manager of the hotel says, Mr. Cleese, I'm really sorry, but these policemen insisted upon going through your room. He said, do you have a warrant? Not knowing what that meant. And they said, yeah, they do. So they went through every single cupboard in his room, tiny little drawers, opened the refrigerator, did everything. And then they leave. The next day he goes downstairs and he says to the manager, you better tell me what happened or I'm going to do something. He said, well, it's the craziest thing. Those So here's what happened. You had a chauffeur. He said, yeah. He dropped me off at 5 o'clock. Well, after that, he was never seen again. And the policeman thought that you killed him and that you hid him in your room. He said, in the refrigerator? And he said, that's a true story. There was a Q&A, and I wish I'd had the guts because all the questions were stupid, questions he can't stand answering, like about that sparrow and everything. So, from the movies, but I had a good question. I was going to go up and say to him, I loved your story about the most unusual night you had in that hotel. And I said, I was going to say, so the next morning, did you see your chauffeur? And he would say no. And I would say to him, John, you're among friends. Tell us what you did with the chauffeur's body. But I didn't do it. So anyway, but I put it on X to see if I could get it to him, but nothing ever happened. But that's the story of my life. I'm a spectacular failure. So anyway, John Cleese dove deep. Here's the great part of his story. His name was actually John Cheese. But his father, Reginald, wanted to sign up to fight in the First World War as a very young man at 15. He wanted to help his country. And so he changed his name because all he heard at school was fermented cheese, fermented milk curd, fermented whatever. And he thought, I'm not going to survive boot camp if my last name is Cheese. I'll make it if I change my last name. So he changed his last name to Cleese, Cheese Cleese. And so, actually, John wishes his name was Monterey Jack Cheese. And he talked to his father about it, and his father said, I made the right choice, leave me alone. So, then he went on. The Fawlty Towers is a true story. They actually did stay at that hotel. All the other pythons left the hotel, but he and his then wife stayed because they called him they named Basil Fawlty after this man named John Sinclair who ran the hotel. And they called him, oh, shut up, Sinclair. Everything he said was horrible. Every time he talked to him, he didn't want to talk to you. All the other pythons scurried out of the hotel. He and his wife were enthralled. And they developed the show. And she did it with him. And it's the greatest comedy in England because it's so English. I personally don't think it's that funny, but I'm not English, so there you have it. He was asked to give some information to be in a filmography book in 1970. And so he created a fake filmography of his career. And in it, and it was there for years because no one ever really checked, he said that he'd been in an Abbott and Costello movie called Meet Mr. Michael Swan, and he was Michael Swan. So that's pretty cute. At a funeral for Graham Chapman, who he said was the complete package. After he died, the pythons couldn't do anything for 10 years. And so at his funeral, at the eulogy, he didn't know what to say about Graham. So in the middle of the night, he got a feeling, and he got a feeling it was Graham, and Graham was telling him to just knock it out of the park. So he starts by saying, about how great it was and all that. And then he says, but my real feelings are good riddance to him, the free-loving bastard. And so they couldn't do anything for 10 years, all of these pythons. And they were invited to a lot of things, but they just were so heartbroken. So they were finally invited to go to the Aspen Comedy Festival. And everybody wanted to go to Aspen because it's beautiful. And so they went to Graham's husband and they asked him if they could take Graham's ashes to the festival, which they did. And he got up with some old comedian and they were on this TV show with him. And John is talking and he's getting very flamboyant with his arms and he knocks over the urn and all the ashes come out and everybody gets up and tries to hide them. And that was how they broke the spell, because they knew that Graham was laughing up in heaven, that he loved it, that it was the most perfect thing to do with the ashes. So In 2005, following his diverticulous, he has type 2 diabetes, but he also has diverticulitis, which is very bad. And they had to take out a part of his colon, and he put it up for sale before eBay. He wanted to send it through Sotheby's, and he was going to give half of the proceeds to his doctor. So he's still crazy, and he's fun. And he took a taxi ride. Remember the volcanic eruption in Iceland that shut down all the airports in Europe? Well, he just didn't want to wait. So he went from the Oslo airport to Brussels in a cab. And he gave the cabbie £3,300 and then a massive tip. So when he wants to go somewhere, he just wants to go. He would not. Well, one title he accepted and one he would not. The title he accepted was the commander of the British Empire. And he said it was ludicrous because the empire no longer existed, so he didn't even have to, crack a bottle of champagne on a toy boat. So he let that one go. He did also do a bank robbery. He found a sketch from the 1920s, and he dressed up exactly like the bank robber. And then he went to a bank teller downtown London, the snootiest bank in the city. And the bank teller just looked at him with his posh little accent, and he said, "Yes? What can I do for you?" It's very hard to get British people to see the joke in anything. So he hates the silly walk. It's bigger than you can imagine. When we, at our show on Sunday, somebody asked him to do the silly walk, and he told us about all of his body parts that were brand new, like knees and hips and all kinds of things, and how he can't do the silly walk. But the truth is, I did some research on it, and he won't do the silly walk. He's embarrassed about it. He says it's the dumbest thing he ever did, and all anybody does is come up to him and ask him to do the silly walk. One of his quotes, which I think is beautiful, every time he goes to a vegetarian restaurant or he talks to a vegetarian, he asks them this question: if God did not intend us to eat animals, then why did he make them out of meat? Which is cute. He also, he's a very deep guy, very deep. So he's got this other thing that he said, okay. He had a terrible divorce from his third wife. Oh my God. She went after him with the biggest lawyer in America, Santa Barbara lawyer. She got $20 million out of him. Much more money than he got out of it. She came into the marriage with 2 children. They never had a good conversation. He doesn't even know what he was thinking. He thinks he might have based it on his mother, who he could never make happy. But he went on this alimony tour, which I wish I'd gone on, because he was hopeful that by the time he died, his children would get more of his money than her children would get of his money. Little vindictive. But I kind of get it. So his mother was difficult and remote. His father was great. Mr. Cheese was great. His mother was cold and hard, and he'd go up to her after school. He'd go up to her every day after school and say, "Mommy, how are you feeling?" And she'd go, "Oh." She'd look up to the sky, and she'd be kind of surprised every single time. Every single day she'd be surprised, and she'd say, "Oh, John, it's just shocking, but I'm a little depressed today." Every single day. And it got worse and worse and worse. And then finally, and he was in schools, and they moved 12, 13 times in his first 13 years of life. So he was always in a different school. When he was 12 years old, he was 6 feet tall, which was very tall in London at the time because all the kids were malnourished. And there he was. And he'd be bullied by people half his height, which is so embarrassing, to be bullied by people who are shorter than yourself. But he had no self-confidence. And his mother just made him feel like terrible. So one day he goes home, and his mother starts up again. And he's the one who's depressed. He can never tell her anything because she can't stop talking about herself. So this day he really wants to tell his mother how horrible his life is, to be bullied by munchkins. And she says, "You know what, John? I just want to kill myself." And I just can't figure out how to do it. I just can't. I mean, a knife is so bloody. Pills, I don't know if I'd take enough, the right kind. And so he looked at his mother and he said, Mom, I know a man in Fulham. If you feel like this in 1 week, I'm going to call him up and he'll come down and kill you. I promise. First time in her entire life, she laughed. He saw the beauty in that. And then from that day forward, when she started up, he would say, Mom, I got the number right here. I'm calling the guy in Fulham. And she'd laugh. He diffused the bomb. And he was a real smart guy. And he was kind of a, math guy, engineer guy. But when he diffused his mom's bomb, he thought he could do it to the third wife. But no. She was stronger than dirt. It didn't work. Comedy doesn't always work. But it's always funny when it's mean-spirited, is what he says. And his mother, Muriel, was very proud of him. Very proud of him. It didn't help her depression at all. But she thought it was amazing that he wasn't like her husband, who she didn't like at all. So he says that all he wanted to do was make people laugh. And his mother would be like, I'm so upset and so depressed. And he'd say, what about Tuesday? And she'd say, oh, John, I can't possibly do it. There's a sherry party that I'm going to. So it was the only time and the only conversation he had with her was through humor. So that was great. He had this one daughter. He has two beautiful daughters. His one daughter, she got addicted to drugs. And she was homeless for quite a while. Her name is Camilla, and I've watched her videos. She's trying to be a comedian. But she doesn't have the desperation, probably because she's wealthy, but she's sweet. And some of her jokes were pretty cute. They really were, about being 6 feet tall. Like she says, it takes 45 minutes for her to shave her legs. I admire that. I get that. She can't wear high heels or she can't hear anything anybody's saying. She loves her little friends and she wishes she could be one. So this guy, they have a dog that they share together that they got from a rescue. He's the first daughter, everything was perfect with. Her name's Claudia or something. And she's in The Fish Called Wanda, and she plays the younger daughter, and she's hilarious in that movie. She's very disappointed in life, just like the wife. And and it's funny, he was in this, in the original Muppet movie, he plays this husband, and he wrote this himself, because it was so much better than anything Henson had written for that role. And the wife is so disappointed, and the food's disappointing, and everything's disappointing, and she's feeling like she might leave the house after 12 years. Something might come up. He is so good at being the placater of depressed women. And he says it is in his bones. He knows how to do it. He loves to do it. So we actually loved playing Basil Fawlty because he's the terrible one. So the daughter the daughter that was the drug addict, now they're close. He did tough love with her. And he would not let her ruin Christmas. And she said it really affected her. And now they're very, very close. And I think to help her, they're doing not a re-emergence, but they're going to create Fawlty Tower, The Next Generation. And she's going to star in it. And I think it's great. He's a wonderful father. His favorite American is James Thurber, who doesn't admire him for that. So, his favorite scene in any of his movies is from Life of Brian, when Brian is telling them, you're all individuals. And they're going, yes, we're all individuals. You all have your own thoughts and dreams. Yes, we all have our own thoughts and dreams. You're all individuals. And this one guy goes, I'm not an individual. And they beat him up. For some reason, that's his sense of humor. So he's got his last wife, Jennifer, who kind of looks like his daughter. But I'm not going to do that Oedipal thing. Not with him. Who's also 31 years younger. I really want to do that edible thing with him, but I'm not going to do it. But Jennifer looks exactly like his daughter. All right, I did it. I said it. I didn't want to, but I did. She's a jewelry designer, which means she has no job. It's the same thing as saying you're a handbag designer. That's what you say when you actually don't work. But that's okay. I would have said it. Okay, so here's one thing, and you really have to, you're really, really, really going to have to listen to me on this one. He loves the fish slapping is his favorite ever scene ever. He loves comedy that makes absolutely no sense. And he says that's why it's timeless, which is true, because he just doesn't think anybody in the whole world should be offended by anything. He said there are people out there. He said he doesn't like to see young faces in audiences. He likes to see old blue hairs everywhere. Because young people, it's almost a hobby or a career to be offended. And then you get to be morally superior, which everyone wants to do. But he said it's the death of comedy. The worst thing that could happen to a creative person is that they wonder if it's good or bad or right or wrong. So he says, comedy always has to be mean-spirited. It's perfect. But he says, and he's not kidding. I could tell, because it was an interview, and I could see the anger in his eyes. You know this guy, and you know you can imagine, and he's 6'5". I don't care if he's 80, 86, he's still good. He's still good. And he's got a wheelchair that goes very fast, and he's not bad on his feet with those new, hips and knees and everything. So he said, if anyone comes up to him and says, what is the air speed velocity of the unladen sparrow? And then if you go Africa or European, he said he's going to kill you. He said he's going to kill you. And I don't think he's kidding. Plus, I've looked up what an unladen sparrow is. It doesn't exist. So he said that everywhere he goes, that's the question people ask him. And it's like when I worked at Neiman's, if something didn't have a price tag on it, everyone said, oh, so I guess it's free. As if I've never heard it before. And I can understand being angry, but I wasn't a sales girl for 60 years. Like he's been doing all this for, 56 years. And he has been listening to people ask him that question. Remember the question. It's a big one. Okay. The wind velocity. Okay, I've got to find it for you because I got to remember it too. I've got to. What is the air speed velocity? Okay, I got to do it right. What is the air speed velocity of the unladen sparrow? Then you go Africa or European. I think he's going to kill you even if you don't say Africa or European. I think he's going to kill you just if you say unladen sparrow. So, watch out for him. That's all I've got. It was wonderful to see him. And 86, he still looks great. He's still funny. He's still wonderful. Oh, what a great role model. What a great hero for us. So, I had a wonderful time, and I will be back. Thanks. Watch out for that question. You know the one.
They fly so high, nearly reach the sky. Then, like my dream,